Thread pools will solve all your performance problems. Well, actually not, but they are super powerful. Today we will look at implementation for thread pools. There's quite some heavy C++ involved, so get your coffee ready. If you are too lazy to type, remember all my code is available on my GitHub. Before we start into the nitty-gritty details, here is what a thread pool in action looks like. We see a nice graph, and in the nice graph we see some open tasks and some busy threads. Both are currently 0. And we can start long calculations that will pile up as tasks. So we started long calculation, and we see that as soon as a calculation is there, the thread will take over. So we have one busy thread and the result will be calculated. If we click several times, we start several threads which all do the calculation. So here we have 3 threads busy at the same time. Because the thread pool here has 4 threads, as I start more than 4 tasks, we will have a task queue, and the task will be in the queue until the threads eventually start processing them. Before we dive into the really complicated thread pool stuff, let's have a look at the basics first. You start inside your main thread. There you create a package task, and of this package task you use getFuture to obtain the future. Both the package task and the future share the same resource. Afterwards, you use the thread and move the package task into the thread that you have created. And how does that look in code? In code, you just create package tasks, and the package task has a job function. The job function is what you actually want to do. Afterwards, you get the future by using getFuture of the task, and then you create a thread and move the task into the thread. Imagine you have 3 threads waiting for tasks. As soon as a task comes in, a thread will take the task and start processing it. As long as there are threads, everything is all right. However, if there are no threads, the tasks begin to pile up. As soon as a thread has finished its task, it can take one task off the queue and start processing. And eventually, all of the tasks will be processed. Now that we know how thread pools work in theory, let's have a look at the implementation. It is important that we have a vector of different threads. These are the threads that we want to use to process our stuff. We also have the queue. This is where the tasks will pile up. And we have some mutex and condition variable. Every single time multiple threads access the same resource, you have to protect them by using a mutex. Alongside with the mutex, we use something that is called a condition variable, and this allows us to put threads into a sleeping mode and also to wake them up from a different thread. Additionally, we have here a bool, which is a shutdown requested. This we can use in destroying the threads, so we actually clean up our stuff. The main logic is in 2 different parts of the thread pool. It's in the thread worker and in the queue. The thread worker is necessary to process what is in the queue. And it is rather short, but also rather heavy to understand. At first, we create the thread worker by giving it a pointer to the pool where it is coming from. This is important because it needs to know the pool, because it needs to access the shared mutexes, it needs to access the shared queue across all of the threads. A thread always has this operator here defined, which is basically the function that it immediately starts to execute as soon as it is spawned. In the function, we create a lock by acquiring the mutex. So the lock is something that is super powerful because it will always be resource agnostic. So by creating the lock, the mutex is acquired, and as soon as the lock is destroyed, the mutex is also given back. And this is something that is super useful. Then we have a while function. This is something that is also in most of the threads because you want to keep doing something until you shut down the program. And this is exactly what we do here. We see whether the shutdown is requested, and if the shutdown is requested, we will finish the queue. And this is not something that you have to do, but I chose this implementation here because I think every calculation might be important for the user. Then we have here some logic, which is just incrementing the busy threads, so we can actually plot them as you have seen at the beginning. And this is a cool one, the condition variable. The condition variable takes the lock, this lock here that you have created at the beginning, and it releases the mutex by the lock, or that is taken by the lock. This is something that's super important. So the condition variable, basically at this point the thread stops and gives back the mutex until it is woken up again. If it is woken up by whatever logic from some other thread, it will check the condition here, and the condition is basically if a shutdown is requested or if the queue is not empty. And if this condition holds true, then it will continue executing. Otherwise, it will go back into sleep. What is super important here is that you actually check your condition inside this one again. There's something called spurious wake-ups for condition variables. It is annoying, and it can happen that your thread wakes up without anybody ever requesting it to wake up. It can happen, I have seen it happen, and those bugs are like super difficult to solve. So just put inside of this lambda something that is actually checking the right condition. As soon as the thread has been woken up from another thread, possibly, we start executing if this condition holds true, and then we look into the queue. If the queue currently is not empty, so some task has been queued, we use the function of the queue. So we look into the queue, what function needs to be executed, and then we execute the function. Important here is also that before we execute the function, we release the lock, or we unlock it, and afterwards we lock it again, so we don't block any of the other threads waiting for execution. The second part is the queue function. The queue function is basically what tasks we want to process. So it is called, in this case, add task, and this is where the magic happens. You see that the add task function is templated by two different things. It is templated by f, which probably is the function type, and by the args template with 3 dots. This one is used if you have an unknown amount of template parameters. So potentially there are infinite template parameters, or at least a large amount, and we don't know them. And that's why we also need to later unpack this template type. So this add task function here can take any number of parameters, and it will deduce the correct template type. Another thing that happens here is that as a return type, we use auto because we don't know the return type without having a look at the parameters. The parameters are templated, so the parameters are not known at this point in time, which is why we use here the decal type function and use this syntax here where we use the return type after we know the parameters. And here we use the decal type as an f, which is the function of the arguments args. So we say that add task should give back a standard future of the type that would be returned if we call the function f with the arguments parsed by args. Okay, now that we have the definition of the function, let's see what happens inside. At first, we create the function object by using standard bind. So we forward the function itself to standard bind, and we forward all of the arguments. So also here we unpack the arguments by using the 3 dots, and we unpack them into the standard bind to create the function object. Unfortunately, the function object here now has a different type for any calculation that we want to do. Because at the beginning we said that we want to calculate basically any function. The problem here is that we want to stuff all of these functions into the same queue. So the queue has a defined type and the function all have a different type. And this is why we create here a shared pointer and use this shared pointer later in a wrapper function. The shared pointer itself is containing this package task of the function. So you remember from the simple example, there you have a package task, and it's basically using the function to create the package task. The task pointer itself is necessary, so the standard make shared is necessary that we can actually copy it. Otherwise, it would be some kind of non-copyable thing, and we need to be able to copy it in order to put it into the Lambda. Into the Lambda here, we basically only do some kind of type erasure. So we say that the task pointer, which we give inside, and whatever it is, we just call the function of the task pointer. We don't need to catch it here by reference because it is pointer now, and the shared pointer will basically do the right thing. At the end of the function, we use the same task pointer to retrieve the future, and the future will stay in the same thread as in the simple example, and the task itself will be put into the queue. The task itself, here we see that we have the wrapper function, and the wrapper function is put into the queue after we have acquired also again a lock, because the queue might already be accessed by something else, for instance one of the threads that is already executing something. So we put it into the queue, and then we wake up a single thread. This is by doing by the condition variable, by calling this notify1. If some thread is currently not busy or waiting at the condition variable, then it will be waking up, and the task can then be started to process. Now that we have the heavy lifting out of the way, let's look at the calling side of the code. The calling side here is super simple. We do have this IMGUI code, which is just creating us the window of the thread pool, and then we have a button. This button is called long calculation. You saw it at the beginning. And if I press the button, then I call thread pool at task. At task was this function which is doing this type erasure thing. And here at task, I only use standard bind because I have this, this app and I want to pass the member function by also binding the this pointer to the member function. And then I add the task to the thread pool. The futures, this is where I push back everything into the futures because I want to keep the results and also use them later. Then in the second part of the code, I go through all of the futures, ask them if they are valid. So if the future is actually existing, and then I wait for a very, very short time if the future might be ready already. If this is the case, I get the future and I push it back into the results. If this is not the case, we just will fall through, and in the next frame we will try again. And then we have this results that for all of the results, I will basically type out the text. And again, let's have a look how this looks like. Here, this is a final example in action. We have this long calculation, we have the busy threads, the open tasks, and I can now basically create as many tasks, as many threads that I like. And you see that they are continuously executed until all of the threads have been successfully finished. I hope you learned something today. This was quite a heavy topic, and the C++ involved is definitely not easy. I hope it was somehow well explained. If it was, please leave a like, and as always, enjoy coding.